When I walked in, my mother-in-law said, "My daughter's children eat first. Her kids can wait for leftovers." My children sat silently in front of empty plates. My sister-in-law chimed in, "They should learn their place." I said nothing. I just took my kids and left. They thought I'd given up. Minutes later, their house echoed with screams they never saw coming. You know, there are moments in life that just break you. But sometimes, when you hit rock bottom, you find a strength you never knew you had. They thought they'd finally broken me, that I'd accept their cruelty and come crawling back like I always did. They had no idea that in exactly 18 minutes, their comfortable lives were going to implode and the screaming would start. But to understand that moment, to really get why their world shattered, you need to know how I became their personal ATM in the first place. How I went from Wyatt's fiancé to being their endless bank account. How 6 years of generosity turned me into someone they thought they could humiliate without consequences. It all started 2 months before our wedding. Addison, Wyatt's mother, called me at work. Her voice was trembling, sounding genuinely distressed. Property taxes had unexpectedly skyrocketed. Could we just help this once? $3,000. She swore she'd pay it back in months. I was sitting in my office, a senior project manager at a pharmaceutical company. $3,000 wasn't nothing, but it wasn't impossible. I wrote the check that same day. Wyatt was so grateful. He pulled me into a hug, telling me his family was lucky to have me, that not everyone would be so generous with people they barely knew. What I didn't tell him was I wasn't being generous. I was being desperate. My parents had died in a car accident during college, leaving me with a modest inheritance and a crushing loneliness. Wyatt's family seemed like everything I'd lost. His mother baked pies, his father told hilarious stories, his sister's kids, Harper and Liam, called me Aunt Leah within weeks. When Addison hugged me and said I was the daughter she'd always wanted, something inside me healed a little. I thought I'd found my place. I thought I'd found home. I had no idea I'd just made my first payment into a system that would bleed me dry. 3 months after the wedding, Roger, Wyatt's dad, needed a medical procedure. Insurance covered most, but not all. $5,000 this time. Addison cried when she asked, explaining how embarrassed Roger felt, how proud he was, how much it meant that family was stepping up. I signed that check even faster than the first. Her gratitude made me feel needed in a way I'd never experienced. That's when I should have noticed the pattern. That's when I should have asked why Roger's adult daughter, Peyton, wasn't contributing. Why his own savings couldn't cover a $5,000 gap. Why every family crisis somehow became my responsibility. But I didn't. I didn't want to be difficult. I wanted to be the good daughter-in-law, the one who understood family helps family, the one who belonged. My career had really taken off. Senior project manager at 31 was impressive, and the salary showed it. I earned nearly 3 times what Wyatt made teaching high school biology. His family noticed that disparity immediately. Addison would often touch my arm and say how proud she was Wyatt married someone so successful, so capable of providing stability. I didn't realize she was calculating my worth down to the dollar. The requests escalated with a chilling precision. Addison would call within days of me mentioning a promotion, suddenly facing a $15,000 roof emergency. The contractor's estimate would arrive in my office that same afternoon. Roger's truck would mysteriously die right after my year-end bonus hit our account, needing immediate replacement. How else could he get his part-time hardware store job? Then came Peyton's crisis. Her divorce turned ugly. Suddenly she needed a $12,000 custody lawyer to protect Harper and Liam. Addison called me, sobbing, explaining family sticks together, we protect our own. Didn't I want to help keep those babies safe? I wrote that check without even discussing it with Wyatt, because how could I say no to protecting children? What I didn't ask was why Peyton's own parents, who owned their house outright and had retirement savings, couldn't cover their daughter's legal fees. Why every emergency skipped them and landed directly on me. I was too busy trying to prove I belonged to notice I was being used. 6 years. 6 years of writing checks for emergencies that always coincided with my bonuses and raises. 6 years of funding roof repairs, truck replacements, legal fees, medical bills. 6 years of being told I was generous, selfless, the daughter-in-law every mother dreamed of. What I failed to track was the complete absence of reciprocity. Our relationship became a one-way street where I gave everything and received nothing but more requests. When Mia, my daughter, was hospitalized with severe pneumonia and I desperately needed help with Evan, Addison was too busy with her church group. When I suffered a miscarriage and could barely get out of bed, Peyton couldn't take time off her part-time boutique job to bring meals. When Wyatt and I needed a weekend away to reconnect, suddenly everyone had scheduling conflicts. But when they needed money, I was family, sacred, obligated, expected to sacrifice without hesitation. Wyatt never questioned it. He'd been raised where his mother's word was law. Peyton's position as the biological daughter granted her a status I could never achieve, no matter how long we were married or how much money I contributed. He genuinely believed financial support equaled love. That writing checks proved our commitment to family bonds. I wanted so badly to be a good wife, to honor his family, that I ignored the growing unease in my gut. I ignored how they never asked about my work stress or celebrated my achievements. I ignored how they praised Peyton endlessly for her part-time boutique job, while dismissing my 60-hour weeks as just corporate work. I ignored how they displayed dozens of photos of Harper and Liam throughout their house, but not a single picture of Mia and Evan. I ignored everything, terrified of being the difficult outsider. So, I kept writing checks and pretending everything was fine. I kept showing up for Sunday dinners where I was expected to cook and clean while Peyton scrolled on her phone. I kept hosting holidays because Addison's back hurt too much, then watched her play with Harper and Liam for hours without a peep of pain. I kept being the ATM, the solution to every financial problem, the daughter-in-law who never said no. Until the day I walked in and saw my children sitting in front of empty plates while their cousins feasted. Until I heard Addison say my kids could wait for scraps. Until Peyton told my babies they needed to know their place. That's when 6 years of willful blindness shattered. That's when I finally understood what I'd really been funding, not family connection, not belonging, just my children's systematic humiliation at the hands of people who thought my money was more valuable than my kids' dignity. I gathered Mia and Evan and left that house without a word. If I started talking, I'd start screaming, and I needed to be cold and calculated for what came next. In the car, Evan quietly asked if we were in trouble. Mia stared out the window, tears running down her face. And right there, in that driveway, I made a decision. I was done being the good daughter-in-law. Done writing checks for people who thought my children were disposable. I checked the time. I started the car. My mind was already calculating exactly what I needed to do, exactly how long I needed to wait, exactly how I was going to make them understand what they just lost. 18 minutes. That's how long my children had sat with empty plates. In 18 minutes, I was going to return the favor. The morning had started like any other Tuesday. Drop the kids at camp, client presentations, 17 urgent emails. By 4:30, I was still stuck in a meeting, dread sinking in. I wasn't going to make it to pick up Mia and Evan by 5. I texted Addison, asking if she could grab them until 7. Of course, she responded within 30 seconds. Would love to spend extra time with them. Take all the time you need. I should have known then. Addison never volunteered for extra time. There was always an excuse. But I was too relieved to question it. I sent a grateful thank you and turned back to the meeting, mentally calculating my escape. It didn't happen quickly. By the time I made it to my car, it was 6:45. I texted Addison again. She replied with a smiley face and said dinner was ready. Dinner. She'd made them dinner. That should have been my second warning. I pulled into their driveway at 7:15. Children's laughter drifted from inside the house, but something was off, fractured. 2 separate groups laughing in different rooms. I grabbed my bag and walked up the path, fishing out the key they'd given me 6 years ago. Addison had made a whole ceremony out of it, saying it symbolized my place in their home and hearts. Now that key felt heavy in my hand. The front door opened into their living room, but the noise came from the kitchen. I smelled Italian food, rich tomato sauce, garlic, fresh bread. My stomach growled. Maybe Addison had made enough for me too. Maybe this was one of those rare moments she'd thought of my needs. I followed the voices, my work heels clicking on the hardwood floors. The hallway opened into a large kitchen and dining space, and that's when I saw it. The scene that would replay in my nightmares. Peyton's children sat at the formal mahogany dining table, like it was a celebration. Harper, 10, working through her 3rd helping of lasagna. Liam, 8, reaching for another piece of garlic bread. Their plates piled high, crystal glasses, cloth napkins. My children sat on bar stools at the kitchen counter, 15 feet away. Their plates were completely empty. Not even crumbs. Just white ceramic surfaces that might as well have been mirrors reflecting back their perceived worthlessness. Mia and Evan weren't laughing. They sat perfectly still, hands folded, watching their cousins eat like it was something on television. Something they weren't part of and never would be. The segregation was so deliberate, so stark. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't poor planning. This was intentional. Addison stood at the dining table, her back to my children, serving Harper another generous portion, smiling and chatting with Peyton. Roger was in his recliner, fork halfway to his mouth, watching the news. Nobody had noticed me. Oh, Leah, perfect timing, Addison said when she finally glanced up. No embarrassment. No guilt. Just mild pleasure, like I'd arrived at a convenient moment. We just finished dinner. Finished. As if my children had participated in a meal instead of watching others eat. My throat closed up with a rage so cold it felt like ice spreading through my chest. I walked over to Mia and Evan and knelt down. Hey, babies, how was your day? Good, Mia said, that careful, neutral tone she used when she didn't want to upset anyone. At 9, she'd learned to make herself smaller. When had that happened? Did you guys have fun playing together? I asked, glancing between my kids and their cousins. Evan shook his head. Thank God for Evan's honesty. He hadn't learned to lie to protect feelings yet. They played different games, he said quietly. I looked around the room again. My children, perched on bar stools like visitors. Peyton's kids sprawled comfortably, like they owned the place. Nobody at that table seemed to think anything was wrong. What did everyone have for dinner? I asked, knowing the answer would destroy me. Grammy made lasagna. Harper announced proudly. It's really good. I looked at Mia. And what did you two have? Mia hesitated, glancing toward Addison. That glance told me everything. We weren't that hungry, she finally said. But I knew Mia. Always hungry after camp. Never turned down Grammy's cooking. Actually, there wasn't quite enough for everyone, Addison interjected smoothly, like this was perfectly reasonable. So, I made them grilled cheese earlier. They were fine with it. Children don't need full meals every single time they're here. I stood up and walked to the kitchen counter. A large glass lasagna pan sat there, at least 6 generous servings remaining. Enough to feed my children twice over. Enough to make it clear that Addison's explanation was a lie. And she didn't even care that I could see the evidence. I think I'll make them plates now, I said, reaching for the serving spoon. Leah, honestly, they're fine, Addison said, an edge in her voice. Children don't need full meals every single time they're here. They already ate. But Harper and Liam seem to need full meals, I observed quietly, looking at the overflowing plates. They seemed to need second and third helpings. The room went silent. Even Roger's chewing slowed. My daughter's children have different nutritional needs, Addison said. The casualness of her cruelty took my breath away. Her kids can wait for scraps if there's not enough to go around. That's just how it works in blended families. Blended families. As if the problem was family structure instead of deliberate exclusion. As if she was explaining basic math instead of teaching my children they didn't deserve to eat. I started serving lasagna onto 2 clean plates, my hands shaking with barely contained fury. Behind me, Peyton's chair scraped. Then her voice, directed at my children, not me. You two are sweet kids, she said, smiling. But you should know your place in this family. My children come first. That's just how it is. Mia's fork, picked up in anticipation, stopped. Evan's eyes filled with tears he was too proud to let fall. Roger's voice came from the living room, agreeable and matter-of-fact. Best they learn young. I looked at my children's faces as they absorbed this lesson. This lesson about their worth. About how their own family saw them as lesser beings. Something inside me snapped clean in half. Come on, kids, I said quietly. Get your things. We're leaving. Leah, don't be dramatic. Addison called. We can talk about this. I didn't respond. I just put the plates of lasagna I'd been preparing into the microwave for 2 minutes. My children were going to eat. Properly. Not rushed out the door like I was ashamed of feeding them in this house. Talk about what? I finally said, my voice eerily calm. About how? You think my children should accept being second-class family members? About how you think it's appropriate to feed them scraps while their cousins feast. The microwave beeped. I pulled out the plates, tested the temperature, and set them in front of Mia and Evan. Their faces transformed when they saw the food. Real food. The same food their cousins had enjoyed. That joy shouldn't have broken my heart, but it did. They shouldn't have been this grateful for basic decency. You're twisting everything, Roger said from his recliner, finally setting down his own plate. We love those kids. I looked at him directly. Do you? When's the last time you came to one of Evan's baseball games? Silence. When's the last time you asked Mia about her science fair project? She won second place, by the way. Built a model of the solar system that lit up. More silence. When's the last time either of you treated them like they actually belonged here? While my children ate, I pulled up another bar stool and sat beside them. They ate with an intensity that made my chest ache, like they were afraid someone might take it away. 7 and 9 years old, and they'd already learned not to take anything for granted in this house. So, what did you guys do all day? I asked gently. Watch TV mostly, Evan said. Any good shows? He shrugged. The ones for little kids. Did you play any games? It's such a beautiful day. The question hung. Mia answered, her eyes still on her plate. Harper and Liam went to the park with Grammy. That sounds fun. Did you go too? Silence, the kind that speaks volumes. Why didn't you go to the park, baby? I asked, knowing the answer would gut me. Grammy said she could only take 2 kids safely, Mia explained, her voice matter-of-fact. And Harper and Liam asked first, so they got to go. Asked first. As if their grandmother operated on a first-come, first-served basis, instead of treating all her grandchildren equally. As if taking 4 kids to a public park was somehow more dangerous than taking 2. How long were they gone? I asked. I don't know. We watched 3 episodes of cartoons. An hour and a half minimum. My children had sat inside, watching television meant for toddlers, while their grandmother took their cousins to the park on a perfect summer afternoon. And nobody had thought anything was wrong with that picture. I looked at Addison, who was suddenly very interested in wiping down the already clean dining table. You couldn't take all 4 kids to the park? It's a safety issue, Leah, she said without looking at me. I can only watch so many children. Harper and Liam are more familiar with the park rules. I didn't want to risk what? I cut her off. Risk my children existing in the same space as their cousins? Risk treating them like they matter. That's not what I said. It's what you meant. Peyton, quiet until now, set down her phone. Actually, Leah, since you're here, I should mention we're going to be pretty busy the next few weekends. Summer's full of activities. The shift in topic was so abrupt. What kind of activities? Oh, you know, community pool parties, neighborhood barbecues, the annual family reunion on my mom's side. She said it casually, but I caught the deliberate exclusion. That sounds wonderful. The kids would love all of that, especially the pool parties. Mia's been practicing her diving. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Well, Peyton said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. These are kind of specific events, not really appropriate for everyone. What does that mean? Roger cleared his throat. What Peyton means is that some of these events are specifically for blood family. Keeps things simple, you understand? Traditions and all that. Blood family. There it was. The phrase that reduced my children to outsiders in their own family tree. I see, I said, though I was only beginning to see the full architecture of their exclusion. And you think it's appropriate to teach my children that they're not real family? That they don't deserve the same experiences as their cousins? We're not saying they're not real family, Addison protested, finally looking at me directly. We're just being realistic about social dynamics. Your kids need to understand that Peyton's children will always have certain privileges because they carry our bloodline. It's natural. It's biological. Natural. She was using science words to justify cruelty, as if genetics was an excuse for treating children differently. So, at the pool party, I said slowly, when Harper and Liam are swimming and playing with their cousins and friends, where exactly do you expect my children to be? Nobody answered. At the family reunion, when everyone's taking photos and sharing stories, do Mia and Evan just stand in the corner? Do they wait outside? You're being deliberately obtuse, Peyton said, irritation creeping in. Nobody said they'd be excluded from everything. We're just saying some events are more appropriate for our side of the family, the biological side. I looked around that dining room, really seeing it for the first time. The portraits on the walls were all of Peyton's children. Not a single photo of Mia or Evan. Not one. Let me ask you something else, I said, standing up. When's the last time any of you came to Evan's baseball games? He plays every Saturday, has for 2 seasons. Silence. When's the last time you asked Mia about school, her friends, the science fair she spent 6 weeks preparing for? Roger shifted uncomfortably. We ask about school. When's the last time you called? Just to talk to them, not to ask me for money. The question landed like a physical blow. I could see it in their faces. The realization that I'd connected the dots they thought I was too blind to see. That's not fair, Addison said weakly. Isn't it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like your relationship with my children has always been secondary to your relationship with my bank account. You remember to call when Roger needed a new truck. You remember to call when Peyton needed a lawyer. You remember to call when the roof needed repairs. But you've never once remembered to call on Mia's birthday. Not once in 9 years. We send cards. Peyton protested. You send cards that I know for a fact your mother buys in bulk at the grocery store because I found the receipt last Christmas. Generic cards with $20 tucked inside. The same ones you send your hairdresser. Mia had stopped eating. Both my children stared at their plates, absorbing this conversation, learning how little they meant to the people who were supposed to love them. Come on, kids, I said quietly. Get your things. We're leaving. Leah, please. Addison started, stepping towards me. Let's not do this in front of the children. You should have thought about that before you did it in front of the children, I said. Before you made them watch their cousins eat while they went hungry. Before you taught them they're not worth the same effort, the same love, the same basic decency as Harper and Liam. I helped Mia and Evan gather their things, my mind racing ahead. At the door, I turned back. We'll talk again soon. When you're ready to be honest about whether you actually love my children, or just my money. The flash of panic across Addison's face told me everything. For the first time in 6 years, she realized her cash flow might be in jeopardy. The ATM might finally be closing. I walked my children to the car, buckled them in, and sat in the driver's seat. My hands were shaking. My whole body was shaking. In the rearview mirror, both kids stared out their windows, faces carefully blank, the way children learn when they're trying not to cry. And that's when I knew exactly what I had to do. I turned the key in the ignition, but didn't put the car in drive. The silence felt heavy, oppressive. I should have said something comforting, but my throat had closed up. Finally, I backed out of the driveway. The house, warm light glowing, looked exactly like the kind of home where families gathered and children were loved. The illusion was perfect from the outside. We made it 3 blocks before Mia spoke. Mom? Her voice was so small. Why don't Grammy and Pop like us as much as Harper and Liam? The question landed in my chest like a stone. I opened my mouth to give her the comforting lie. But I couldn't. Not anymore. They should love you exactly the same, baby, I said, my voice shaking. Grandparents are supposed to love all their grandchildren equally. But they don't, Evan said, flat and factual. We're not blood family, Aunt Peyton said. I had to pull over. I couldn't see the road through the tears. I guided the car to the curb, pressing my palms against my eyes. My 7-year-old son had just articulated his own perceived worthlessness. He said it like it was a fact of life he'd accepted. Like he'd already learned his place. Listen to me, I said, turning to them. What Aunt Peyton said is cruel and wrong. Your family. You are their grandchildren. And if they can't see how special and valuable and wonderful you are, that's their failure, not yours. Do you understand? Mia nodded, but her eyes were full of doubt. Evan just stared at his hands. How long has this been happening? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. How long have they been treating you differently when I'm not there? The kids exchanged a glance. Always, Mia finally said. But we thought maybe we were being too sensitive. Like maybe we were imagining it. Always. The word echoed. Always meant every time I dropped them off. Every Sunday dinner, every holiday. It had been happening and I'd been too blind to see it. Or maybe too afraid. Because seeing it would have meant choosing. My mind raced through 6 years of memories, re-examining them. Mia's 6th birthday party. Harper and Liam got elaborate presents. Mia got a $20 Target gift card. Christmas 2 years ago. Addison's living room covered in photos of Harper and Liam, but when I asked about ours, she said she was waiting for good ones. The beach house vacation we weren't invited to because of limited space, even though it had 4 bedrooms. Every small cruelty had been there all along, building a foundation of exclusion. I'd been too busy writing checks to notice the structure they were constructing around my children. When we pulled into our driveway, I saw Wyatt in the kitchen. Normal Tuesday evening. He probably expected us to walk in, everything fine. Everything was not fine. The kids went straight upstairs. I stood in the entryway, trying to compose myself. What happened? Wyatt asked when I walked in. His tone was already defensive. I told him. Everything. Every word his mother had said, every cruelty his sister had inflicted, every moment of our children sitting with empty plates. I watched his face cycle through shock, discomfort, then resignation. That expression told me he'd known. Maybe not the specific incidents, but the overall pattern. He'd known and chosen not to see it. They probably didn't mean it the way it sounded, he said. Those words felt like a betrayal. You know how Mom is. She says things without thinking. She told our children they should wait for scraps, Wyatt. She said it was normal for blood family to eat first. Your sister told them they need to know their place. What part of that could I possibly be misunderstanding? He ran his hand through his hair. I'm sure there's context you're missing. Family dynamics are complicated. Stop, I said, my voice sharp enough that he took a step back. Stop defending them. Stop making excuses. Your family humiliated our children today. And instead of being angry about it, you're telling me I'm overreacting. I'm not saying you're overreacting. I'm saying maybe we should talk to them before jumping to conclusions. I heard what they said, Wyatt. I saw what they did. There are no conclusions to jump to. This happened. He was quiet. I could see him struggling, an internal battle between the son who never questioned his mother and the father who was supposed to protect his children. They've always been good to us, he finally said, and the weakness in that argument made me want to scream. Have they? When Mia was in the hospital, where was your mother? When I had a miscarriage, did your sister bring a single meal? When we begged them to babysit so we could save our marriage, did any of them make time? That's different. How is it different? They had commitments. They have lives. But we can drop everything when they need money, I said quietly. We can drop everything when your mother needs a new roof or your father needs a new truck or your sister needs a lawyer. Funny how that works. I walked past him to the home office and opened my laptop, pulling up our bank account with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Wyatt followed me. What are you doing? Something I should have done years ago, I said. I'm calculating exactly how much money we've given your family. Leah, that's not necessary. It's absolutely necessary. I need to know. I need to see the number. I need to understand what I've been funding all this time while they've been systematically excluding our children from their own family. The spreadsheets came together. Each transaction a small wound, adding up to something catastrophic. 3,000 here, 5,000 there, 15,000 for the roof, 12,000 for legal fees, 8,000 for medical bills. The numbers climbed higher and higher while Wyatt stood watching, his face growing paler. When I reached the total, I stared at it, not quite believing. $134,000, I said out loud, my voice hollow. Over 6 years, I had given Wyatt's family $134,000. And in return, they taught my children they weren't worth feeding. Wyatt made it sound like he'd been punched. That can't be right. It's right. I've checked it 3 times. I scrolled back to the top, showing him the earliest entries. This is every bank transfer, every check, every direct payment I've made to your family or on their behalf. Want me to walk you through it? He didn't answer, just stared at the screen. $3,000 for property taxes before we were even married. I continued, my voice mechanical. $5,000 for your dad's medical procedure 3 months after the wedding. $12,000 for Peyton's custody lawyer. $15,000 for the roof. $8,000 for your mom's dental work. $22,000 for your dad's truck. I didn't realize, Wyatt said weakly. I didn't know it added up to that much. That's the problem, Wyatt. You never asked. You never questioned why every single family emergency became my financial responsibility. You never wondered why your parents with their paid-off house and your sister with her boutique job couldn't handle their own expenses without my constant support. I kept scrolling. Emergency dental work, property tax. Increases that happened with suspicious regularity, car repairs that always coincided with my bonuses, medical bills, home repairs, utility assistance during months that never seemed to end. Some of these were loans, Wyatt said, grasping at the weakest defense. They were going to pay us back. Were they? Show me one. Show me a single loan that's been repaid. Silence. The roof repair was supposed to be temporary help. He tried again. Dad was going to pay us back when his settlement came through. What settlement, Wyatt? There was no settlement. That was just another story to make me feel better about writing the check. He sank into the chair, his head in his hands. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. But then I remembered Mia and Evan with their empty plates, and the sympathy evaporated. They're my parents, he said finally, his voice muffled. They raised me. They sacrificed for me. I can't just abandon them. I'm not asking you to abandon them. I'm asking you to see what they've been doing to our children, to us. They've been using you, Wyatt. Using your guilt and your sense of obligation to bleed us dry while treating our kids like they're less than human. That's not fair. Your mother told our children they should wait for scraps. I cut him off, my voice rising. Your sister told them they need to know their place. Your father agreed they should learn young to expect less. While we've been paying for their mortgages and their trucks and their lawyers, they've been teaching our babies they don't deserve basic dignity. How is pointing that out not fair? I heard footsteps on the stairs and lowered my voice. A soft knock. Mom? Mia's voice small. Can I get some water? Of course, baby. I'll come with you. I left Wyatt sitting in the office, staring at the spreadsheet. Mia filled her water bottle, taking longer than necessary. She'd come down because she heard us arguing and wanted to make sure I was okay. 9 years old and already trying to take care of me. Are you and Dad fighting about what happened at Grammy's? She asked. I could have lied. I should have lied. But I was so tired of lying to protect other people's feelings. We're having a difficult conversation about it. Yes. Is it our fault? The question shattered what was left of my composure. I pulled her into a hug. No, sweetheart. None of this is your fault. Not one single bit. You and Evan have done nothing wrong. The adults in the situation have made bad choices, and we're trying to figure out how to fix it. Does Dad think we're overreacting too? Like she'd already internalized that her feelings weren't valid. Dad is learning some things he should have paid attention to a long time ago, I said carefully. It's hard for him because it's his family, and nobody wants to believe their family would do something hurtful on purpose. She nodded against my shoulder, and I could feel her tears soaking my shirt. After I got her settled, I stood in the hallway, just breathing, trying to find the strength to go back downstairs. My phone buzzed. A text from Rachel, my best friend. How did it go? Call me if you need to talk. I'd texted her on the drive home. Now I desperately needed a voice that wasn't Wyatt's. Someone who would understand, who would validate what I was feeling. I went into the bedroom and closed the door before calling her. Tell me everything, Rachel said, no preamble. So I did. The empty plates, Addison's casual cruelty, Peyton's deliberate meanness, Roger's agreement, Wyatt's defensiveness. The spreadsheet showing $134,000 for people who couldn't be bothered to love my children. Rachel listened without interrupting. She didn't try to fix it or minimize it. I'm not surprised, she finally said, sadness in her voice. Leah, I've been watching this pattern for years. I tried to point it out gently, but you weren't ready to hear it. I know. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. I understand why you couldn't see it. You wanted family so badly after losing your parents. Wyatt's family seemed like everything you'd been missing. But they've been using that longing against you, using your generosity as a weapon. What do I do? I asked, my voice breaking. How do I fix this? What do you want to do? I thought about it. Did I want an apology? For them to change? To salvage the relationship? No. What I wanted was for them to understand what they've lost. I want them to hurt the way they hurt my kids, I said quietly. Is that terrible? It's human, Rachel said. And, honestly, it might be necessary. Some people don't learn until they face real consequences. I don't even know where to start. Actually, Rachel said, her tone shifting from friend to paralegal. You might have more options than you think. Didn't you co-sign on their mortgage? Yeah, 3 years ago when they were refinancing. Their credit was shot. And you've been making payments? Substantial ones. The property taxes alone are brutal. And Roger's truck? I guaranteed it with my credit score. Rachel was quiet. Leah, do you understand what this means? You're not just giving them money. You're legally responsible for their debts, which means you also have the power to remove yourself from those obligations. My heart started beating faster. What are you saying? I'm saying that if you wanted to send a message, a very clear and powerful message about what happens when you take someone for granted, you have the legal right to stop all support immediately. You can remove yourself as a cosigner. You can withdraw your guarantee on the truck loan. You can stop any payments you've been making on their behalf. What would happen to them? They'd have to cover those expenses themselves. And given what you've told me, they probably can't. They'd face foreclosure. The truck would get repossessed. They'd have to drastically downsize. I sat with that information. The power I'd had all along without realizing it. The leverage I'd been giving them freely while they used it to hurt my children. How fast could this happen? I asked. If you make the calls tomorrow, the banks would notify them within 48 hours. Foreclosure takes about 90 days, but the panic would start immediately. I thought about 18 minutes. The humiliation. The hunger. The learning they didn't matter. I need to think about this, I said. Of course, Rachel said. But Leah, whatever you decide, I'm here. If you need legal paperwork, if you need someone to make calls, if you just need someone to remind you that you're not crazy for being angry, I'm here. After we hung up, I sat on the edge of my bed. Downstairs, I could hear Wyatt. I pulled up my banking app. The mortgage assistance, the truck payment, the mysterious monthly transfer to an account I now realized paid part of Peyton's rent. They built their entire comfortable lifestyle on the foundation of my income. All of it funded by the daughter-in-law they'd never bothered to value. I stayed up most of that night researching cosign loans, guarantor obligations, mortgage law. By 3 a.m., I understood exactly what I could do and the consequences. By 4 a.m., I'd made my decision. I didn't sleep. I just lay there, running through scenarios. By the time dawn broke, I knew exactly what I was going to do. Wyatt left early for summer school classes, kissing my forehead without meeting my eyes. We hadn't resolved anything. The spreadsheet was still open. I got the kids ready with mechanical efficiency. Mom, Mia asked as I buckled her seatbelt. Are we ever going to see Grammy and Pop again? The question lodged in my throat. I don't know yet, sweetheart. We need some time to figure things out. Did we do something wrong? Her voice cracked. No, you did nothing wrong. Nothing. Do you hear me? She nodded, but I saw the doubt. Children always blame themselves. I made it 3 blocks before I had to pull over. The tears came so suddenly. I'm sorry, I managed to say. I'm so sorry you had to experience what happened yesterday. You deserved better. It's okay, Mom, Evan said quietly from the back. We're used to it. Used to it. My 7-year-old son was used to being treated as less than human by his own family. How had I let this happen? How had I been so blind? Are we going to be okay? Evan asked, something in his tone making me look at him. Without Grammy's help, are we going to be okay? He'd absorbed so much about our family dynamics. We're going to be more than okay, I told him, wiping my eyes and pulling back onto the road. I promise you that. After I dropped them at camp, I sat in the parking lot. My accountant's number was pulled up. All I had to do was press call. But once I started this, there was no going back. Once I dismantled their financial security, we would be at war. I pressed call. Margaret, my accountant, answered. I'd prepared her yesterday. I want to move forward, I said. You're sure about this, Leah? I'm sure. The mortgage first. You're listed as co-signer on the property at 847 Maple Grove Drive. Correct. I'll contact the bank this morning and initiate removal. They'll need to refinance without your income and credit, which, given what you've told me, they likely can't do. They'll have 90 days before foreclosure begins. How quickly will they be notified? The bank will contact them within 24 to 48 hours. Next, my lawyer, Patricia. She'd already reviewed everything. The truck loan is straightforward, Patricia explained. You guaranteed it, but you can withdraw that guarantee with written notice. The dealership will require Roger to refinance within 30 days, or they'll repossess. Peyton's rent? You've been making supplemental payments directly to her landlord. You can stop those immediately. Will the landlord notify her? Absolutely. Probably within the week. I sat in my car after those calls, watching other parents. Normal people, not calculating revenge against family. But I wasn't going to feel guilty. Not this time. I drove home and spent the day working. I kept checking the time obsessively. I decided during my sleepless night I was going to time this perfectly. 18 minutes. That's how long Mia and Evan had sat with empty plates. At 7:02 that evening, I made the first call. The mortgage bank. All I had to do was verbally confirm my intention. The representative explained the primary borrowers would be notified within 24 hours. Second call, the truck dealership. Same process. Roger would receive notification. Third call, Peyton's landlord, Frank. I'm calling to inform you that I'll no longer be making supplemental rent payments for Unit 3. The tenant is going to be short on rent then, Frank said, annoyed. She can't afford the full amount on her own. That's between you and her. My obligation ends today. I hung up and looked at the clock. 7:27. 3 phone calls in 2 minutes. Everything was done. Now I waited. Wyatt came home around 7:30, still walking on eggshells. He heated up leftovers. Did you do something? He asked quietly. I protected our children. Leah, what did you do? Before I could answer, my phone rang. Addison. I checked the time. 7:43, exactly 18 minutes after I'd made my calls. I answered on speaker so Wyatt could hear. Leah, honey, something's wrong with the mortgage payment. Her voice was trembling, verging on panic. The bank called and said you removed yourself as cosigner. That can't be right. There's no mistake, Addison. I removed myself from your mortgage and stopped all payments. You can't do that. We'll lose the house. Then I suggest you figure out how to make the payments yourselves. You have 90 days before foreclosure proceedings begin. Leah, please. We can work this out. Can we? Because yesterday you told my children they should wait for scraps while your daughter's children ate first. You told them to know their place. So now you're going to learn yours. I ended the call. Wyatt stared at me, his face pale. What did you just do? I took away everything I've been giving them. The mortgage, the truck loan, Peyton's rent. All of it stops today. They're going to lose everything. Good. My phone rang again. Roger. I let it go to voicemail. Moments later, I heard his angry voice, leaving a message about how I was destroying the family. 12 minutes after the first call, my phone rang a third time. Peyton, sobbing. You told Frank to stop paying my rent. Leah, I can't afford my apartment. I'm going to get evicted. Then I suggest you ask your mother for help, I said calmly. Oh wait. She's about to lose her house because I stopped subsidizing her lifestyle too. You vindictive, be very careful what you say next, Peyton. Because I've also notified your custody lawyer that I won't be covering any more of your legal fees. I believe you still owe them about $8,000. I'm sure they'll be very interested in immediate payment. The line went dead. 17 minutes after the first call. I looked at Wyatt. He was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. I timed it, I said. 18 minutes. The exact amount of time our children sat with empty plates. Every phone call, every moment of panic they're experiencing right now, it matches what they did to Mia and Evan. Minute by minute. Leah, they're going to lose everything they have. Yes, I said. They are. Wyatt's phone started ringing at 6 a.m. the next morning. His mother. He looked at the screen, then at me, and declined the call. It rang again 30 seconds later. And again. And again. By the time we sat down for breakfast, he had 14 missed calls. I had 9. The barrage had begun. The first voicemail from Addison started with tears. Leah, honey, please call me back. There's been a terrible misunderstanding with the bank. They're saying we're going to lose the house. Please, we need to fix this. The second, an hour later, had a different tone. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but this isn't funny. You can't just destroy our lives because you're upset about a little disagreement. We're family. Call me back right now. The third was pure rage. How dare you do this to us after everything we've done for you? We welcomed you into this family with open arms. We treated you like a daughter and this is how you repay us? By taking away our home? You're a spiteful, vindictive woman and Wyatt deserves better. I listened to each one, Wyatt watching my face. I kept my expression neutral, clinical. She's spiraling, I said calmly. Leah, maybe we should what? Give them another chance to tell our children they're not good enough? Write another check so they can continue treating us like an ATM with a pulse. He didn't have an answer. By mid-morning, Roger had sent 6 text messages, each escalating in aggression. The last one threatened legal action, claiming I'd entered into a binding agreement. That's when I forwarded the entire thread to Patricia, my lawyer. She called back within 20 minutes. Your father-in-law is bluffing, she said. There's no binding agreement. Every payment you made was voluntary. I'm sending him a cease and desist letter right now. Any further harassment will result in a restraining order. Be prepared, Leah. This is going to get worse before it gets better. People who've been financially dependent don't give up easily. She was right. On day 2, Peyton showed up at my office building. My assistant, apologetic, told me a woman was demanding to see me. I took the elevator down, already knowing. Peyton stood by the security desk, face blotchy, voice loud enough to draw attention. You can't do this to me, she was saying to the guard. My children are going to be homeless because of her. Ma'am, you need to leave. Not until she talks to me. I approached slowly. Peyton. She whirled around, genuine panic in her eyes. For a moment, I almost felt sorry. Almost. Leah, please. Frank is going to evict me. I can't afford the full rent. Harper and Liam need stability. You can't do this to my children. You did this to your children when you decided mine weren't worth basic decency. That's not what happened. You told my kids they should know their place, I said quietly. You said your children come first. Well, now my children come first. You'll figure it out, Peyton. The same way millions of single mothers figure it out without someone else paying their bills. I'll lose custody. If I can't provide stable housing, Jeremy's lawyer will use it against me. You're going to help him take my children. That hit differently. For a split second, I wavered, thinking about Harper and Liam. But then I remembered Mia and Evan on those bar stools with empty plates and the sympathy evaporated. Then maybe you should have thought about consequences before you treated my children like they were disposable. Security escorted her out while she screamed that I was destroying her life. I went back upstairs, sat through the rest of my meeting, and didn't let myself think about it until I got home. What I didn't expect was the call from Wyatt's Aunt Linda. I'd met Linda 3 times. She wasn't particularly close with Addison or Roger, but she was Roger's sister. Leah, this is Linda Harper. I hope you don't mind me calling, but I need to understand what's happening with Roger and Addison. What did they tell you? I asked carefully. Addison called me yesterday asking for money. She said you'd cut them off, and they were about to lose everything. She said you'd always been controlling with money, holding it over their heads, and now you were punishing them over some minor disagreement about the grandkids. The lies were so breathtaking, I actually laughed. Is that what she said? She made it sound like you'd been financially abusive for years. Said she'd been reaching out to family because she didn't know how else to survive. She's been telling me this for about 3 years now. Actually, I've been sending them money every month because I thought they were being mistreated. 3 years. Addison had been running a side operation with extended family, telling them I was the villain while I funded her entire lifestyle. Linda, would you be willing to listen to my side? That's why I'm calling. I sent her everything. The spreadsheet showing $134,000 in payments. Bank statements proving I'd been making their mortgage payments. The timeline showing how every request coincided with my bonuses. And then I sent her the recording I'd made on my phone at dinner, where you could clearly hear Addison talking about my children waiting for scraps. Linda called me back an hour later. I could hear the anger. I've been sending them $1,500 a month for 3 years based on complete lies. She told me you were withholding money while living extravagantly. She made you sound like a monster. I'm sorry she put you in that position. Don't apologize. I'm furious with her, not you. I just called Roger and told him exactly what I think of him and his wife. I won't be sending another dollar. Over the next few days, I got similar calls from Wyatt's Uncle Marcus, 2 cousins, and even Addison's own sister. Each had been told some version of the same story. The web of lies was more extensive than I'd imagined, and watching it unravel gave me a cold satisfaction I wasn't entirely proud of, but couldn't deny. Wyatt was caught in the middle. His phone never stopped ringing. His mother, sobbing about losing the house. His father, leaving voicemails calling me names I won't repeat. His sister, sending him essays about how I was destroying her life. I watched him struggle, torn between loyalty and the growing realization that I'd been right. One night, about a week after I'd made those calls, he was in the bedroom talking to his mother. I paused in the hallway. His voice was strained, exhausted. Mom, I can't keep having this conversation. No, I'm not going to make her change her mind because you told her children they should wait for scraps. You told them they needed to know their place. There was a long pause where I could hear Addison's high-pitched, defensive voice. I don't care if that's not how you meant it, Wyatt continued, and I heard something crack in his voice. That's what you said. That's what Mia and Evan heard. Do you have any idea what that did to them? I backed away, not wanting to eavesdrop. But I'd heard enough. Something was shifting in him, finally. When he came downstairs 20 minutes later, his eyes were red. I told her I need space, he said. I can't be in the middle of this anymore. I can't keep defending them when I know what they did was wrong. It was the first time he'd acknowledged their behavior without qualifying it. That must have been hard, I said. It was. But you know what was harder? Mia asked me earlier if Grammy was mad because we stopped giving her money. My heart dropped. She what? She heard me on the phone. She connected all the dots. Leah, she understands that Grammy and Pop's love was conditional on our financial support. What 9-year-old should have to understand that? He sat down heavily, head in his hands. I've been so stupid. You tried to tell me for years, and I kept defending them. I kept telling you that you were misunderstanding, that you were being too sensitive. And all this time, our kids were watching and learning that love is something you have to purchase. You didn't see it because you didn't want to, I said gently. They're your parents. Nobody wants to believe their family would treat them that way. But they did. They used us. They used you specifically because you lost your parents and were desperate for family. They saw that vulnerability and exploited it for 6 years. And I let them. The admission hung between us, painful and necessary. What do we do now? He asked. I sat across from him. Now we protect our children. We teach them that they don't have to accept less than they deserve from anyone, including family members who are supposed to love them unconditionally. He nodded slowly. Even if it means my parents lose their house. Especially if it means that. Because maybe losing everything they built on our backs will teach them something about consequences and respect. For the first time, Wyatt reached across the table and took my hand. I'm sorry, he said. I should have protected you and the kids years ago. I should have seen what they were doing. You see it now, I said. That's what matters. We sat there for a long time, holding hands, in the quiet acknowledgement that we were finally on the same side. It was the first moment of peace I'd felt since walking into that dining room. The next 3 months unfolded exactly as my lawyer and accountant predicted. Addison and Roger couldn't refinance. Their bank account couldn't sustain the monthly payments. Foreclosure proceedings began, right on schedule. Clinical and impersonal. Just business. I heard about it through Wyatt, who still received updates from his mother, though he'd stopped taking her calls daily. They found a small 2-bedroom apartment above a laundromat in a neighborhood they'd once described as not their kind of area. They had to sell most of their furniture to cover moving costs and first month's rent. Roger's truck was repossessed in week 7. Peyton found a roommate, picked up a second job. Her Instagram, once full of curated lifestyle shots, went silent. I waited for the satisfaction. The vindictive pleasure I'd imagined I'd feel watching their comfortable life collapse. But it never arrived. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not guilt, not regret. Just a vast emptiness where my relationship with Wyatt's family used to exist. What I didn't expect was the letter. It arrived 4 months after I'd made those phone calls. Handwritten, no return label, but I recognized Addison's careful cursive. I held it for a long time. Dear Leah, it began. No sweetheart, no honey. Just my name. I've started this letter 17 times. Each time I wrote something, then crumpled it up because it wasn't honest enough, or it was making excuses, or trying to minimize what we did. I'm going to try one more time to just tell you the truth. You were right about all of it. We treated your children poorly. We prioritized Peyton's kids over Mia and Evan in ways that were cruel and deliberate. We made them feel less than. And we did it consciously, telling ourselves we had good reasons, but knowing deep down that we didn't. I told myself it was about blood, about biology, about maintaining family traditions. But the truth is simpler and uglier than that. I was jealous of you. You had the education I never got, the career I never pursued, the financial independence I never achieved. You represented everything I'd given up or never had the courage to chase. And instead of being proud of my son for finding someone so accomplished, I resented you for it. Peyton was my do-over, my second chance. I poured everything into her kids that I felt I'd missed with my own. And when you came along with your success and your money and your confidence, I saw you as competition instead of family. So I took your money and I let you believe it made you belong. But I never really let you in. I never really accepted that your children were as much my grandchildren as Peyton's. I kept you at arm's length while bleeding you dry. And I told myself I was doing it for family, when really I was just being spiteful and small. Losing the house, losing our comfortable life, it forced me to look at what we'd done. Roger and I are living in a 2-bedroom apartment that costs more per month than our mortgage did, and we're barely making it. Peyton is working herself to exhaustion just to keep her kids housed. And we did this to ourselves, not you. I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking for anything except the chance, maybe someday, to be a real grandmother to Mia and Evan. To show them that adults can learn and change and do better. To prove that I'm capable of loving them the way I should have from the beginning. If you're not ready for that, I understand. If you're never ready for that, I understand that too. I just needed you to know that I see what we did. I see it clearly now, and I'm sorry. It was signed simply Addison. No love, no regards. I read it 3 times before showing it to Wyatt. He read it once, slowly, then set it down. What do you think? He asked. I think it's the first honest thing she's said to me in 6 years, I answered. But I don't know if one letter changes anything. Do you want it to? That was the real question. Did I want to rebuild a relationship with people who'd hurt my children so deliberately? I don't know yet, I admitted. Ask me again in a few months. Wyatt and I had started marriage counseling in month 2, after a particularly bad fight. Our therapist, Dr. Chin, had a gift for cutting through defenses. She helped Wyatt understand how deeply his mother had conditioned him to prioritize her emotional needs. She walked him through the manipulation, showing him how Addison had trained him to believe a good son never questioned his mother. It was painful to watch him grapple with that. In some ways, Wyatt was grieving the mother he thought he had. For my part, Dr. Chin helped me see how losing my parents had made me vulnerable to Addison's manipulation. How my desperate need for family had blinded me. The counseling wasn't magic. We still fought. But slowly, incrementally, we were building something stronger. Wyatt started setting boundaries. When his mother called to complain about their apartment, he told her he couldn't listen. When Peyton sent long texts blaming me, he responded with one sentence: "You're responsible for your own choices." When Roger tried to guilt him, Wyatt finally told him that family works both ways. It was remarkable watching him find his spine after 34 years of conditioning. The biggest changes came in our children. Mia stopped apologizing for everything. Sorry for asking for seconds. Sorry for needing help. Sorry for existing. All of it gradually faded. Evan started talking about his feelings. When he was angry or hurt, he told us instead of going quiet. He started taking up space again. They stopped asking about Grammy and Pop Pop around month 3. Just stopped mentioning them. When I eventually showed them Addison's letter in month 5, asking if they'd want to see their grandparents, Mia thought about it for a long time. "Maybe when I'm older," she finally said. "Right now, I don't think I'm ready." Is that okay? That's more than okay, baby. You get to decide when and if you're ready. Nobody else. What about you, Evan? Wyatt asked. Evan shrugged. I don't know. I don't really miss them. Is that bad? Not even a little bit. I assured him. 6 months after everything fell apart, we had dinner together as a family. Just the 4 of us. No extended family obligations, no performances. Just existing together in our own space. Wyatt made pasta. The kids set the table. I lit candles. We ate and talked and laughed. Somewhere in the middle of Evan telling a ridiculous story, I looked around our table and realized this was what family was supposed to feel like. Safe, equal, unconditional. I'd spent 6 years trying to buy my way into belonging with people who would never really let me in. I'd funded a comfortable lifestyle for people who treated my children as disposable. I'd written checks and ignored red flags and convinced myself that love just looked different in different families. But I'd been wrong. Love doesn't look like empty plates and casual cruelty and being told to know your place. Love doesn't come with conditions and hierarchies and payment plans. Real love looks like this. Like pasta dinner on a Tuesday night, with sauce on the tablecloth and kids talking over each other, and nobody keeping score of who deserves what. I'd burned down the toxic structure I'd been supporting for years. And from the ashes, we were building something real. The screams that had filled Addison's house the night I made those phone calls had been the sound of consequences arriving after years of being held at bay. I delivered them with precision and purpose, timing the devastation to match the cruelty my children had experienced. I'd never regret it, not for a single moment. Because my children deserved a mother who would protect them, even when it meant going to war with the family I tried so hard to join. They deserved to learn that they didn't have to accept less than they were worth, that boundaries were healthy, that real love never required them to make themselves smaller. And if teaching them that meant dismantling someone else's comfortable life, then that was a price I'd pay every single time. So tell me, what would you have done in my place? Have you ever had to draw a line in the sand with family, even when it hurt? I really want to know what you think. Let me know in the comments below.